Hello, welcome to the podcast. Today I have a really cool guest. I have Russ Sabella. He is an author, he is a school counselor, he is a college professor, and we have been trying to get together for so long. Welcome, Russ. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Oh, thank you. I know it's been too long. We finally did it. We got our schedules to coordinate.
I know. And that's partly because we are on the opposite sides of the United States. So we'll give ourselves a little bit of leeway with that, right?
I'm glad to be here with you today. I really enjoy your podcast. The whole solution focus is a really big deal for me.
For me, I discovered solution focused at a random workshop I was at. And then I started just inundating myself before I got professionally trained, just with everything I could find out there. But how did you originally get into solution focused?
Yeah, actually, I think you and I have some things in common with that. I started in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was started with one book. It was called In Search of Solutions. Michelle Weiner Davis and Bill O'Hanlon wrote that. And I remember reading it and just being blown away. At that point, I was a real problem solver. I was into behavior modification. I was a school counselor at the time. And I was also working on my doctorate at the University of Florida. And then I kind of put it away for a little bit just because I was so busy trying to finish school and I had started a family. But my first professor job was at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. And that's where I met a friend and colleague, Jerry Scalaire. And Scalaire was in the same place that I was. He was interested in solution focused. At the time, it was well established in marriage and family, couples counseling, mental
Yeah.
health, substance abuse, but not really in school counseling. And so Jerry and I spent about 4 years every Friday through a grant really going out to schools and answering two questions. One, does this work with kids? And two, does it work in a school system? School systems are kind of, unique places.
They
And
certainly
so
are. Yeah.
we were able to do that. We collected a lot of evidence. We did a lot of tweaking. And the answer to those two questions were yes and yes. And so I was sold at that point. I fell in love with the model. It really fit my personality of strength-based kinds of helping and empowering others to do more and to go beyond what they even thought they could do, even like things like post-traumatic growth. But like you, then I started kind of branching out. How does this work with parents and consulting with teachers? And I was interested in leadership and organizational development. In fact, I somehow got elected as the president of the American School Counselor Association. And I was so I read all I could on leadership. And at the time, I was really amazed to find out that all of the successful leadership books and manuals and inspirational pieces were very solution focused.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we did some of that stuff at the organization, and the staff was already solution focused, and it worked. And then I was
Yeah.
able to replicate it at the Florida School Counselor Association. I was president of that group for a while. And then we started looking at, well, how do we integrate play and creative expressionistic solution focus? And then how does this approach really interface with other approaches like cognitive behavior and choice theory? And so for the last 3 decades, that's what I've been doing. I've just been kind of continually asking what the next question is. How can we develop this with a new population or a new age group or a new whatever. And what I'm finding too is that whether you're looking at it as a parent or a special ed teacher or a mental health counselor or simply anyone who wants to be more effective and efficient at empowering others to do better.
Yeah.
I love this model. And personally, I think it's how I run my career, it's how I run everything I do, and it works.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, that it works. I mean, it's really funny because people can nitpick all these little things, and to me, I say try out just the simplest of practices and come back, and then we can have the conversation, because chances are you're going to find it works, and then all of a sudden you're going to be like, wait a minute, I need to take a second look at this.
Yeah. Well, Cher, I have two thoughts about that. One is I was a skeptic at first as well. How could this work? I mean, for so long, I've been focused on problems. I needed to find out what the problem was and then truly understand. I had to look at root causes of problems and issues. And then and only then could I start looking at developing goals? And so to not do that is a bit of a mind shift for a lot of people. And it did take
Yeah.
me a little while to do that. And sometimes it takes people a long time. And so you do have to have faith that you can help people start a new tomorrow without ever really quite understanding in depth what went wrong. In other words, start doing more of what's right, and you don't ever really have to understand what went wrong. And that's a
Yeah.
big part of the model. And so that it takes practice.
It takes practice because I think that some people automatically write it off because it feels so uncomfortable to figure out how to not unpack the problem completely. And how are you going to I had a colleague come up to me and said, "I just can't do that because I want to let them talk about the problem if that's what they need to do." And I th I mean, answering back in that moment was not something that was gonna work out, but later I was thinking about it, and I'm like, the response that I have to that is you can honor where
Mhm.
somebody is at
Absolutely.
without completely unpacking the entire
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Have you found
So
that?
absolutely. A couple things here. Maybe your listeners, some of your listeners may not be familiar with the solution focused approach, but what we're talking about here is kind of flipping the script. Rather, if someone's just kind of off track and having problems and issues, or if they're socially and emotionally not in a good place, whether it's depression or anxiety, we tend to focus on it. Even if they're 80% of their day is not going well, we typically tend to want to explain and blame and then reframe. And that takes a lot of time and energy. And here's what we found out: it's not absolutely necessary either. And so this is an approach that says, let's focus on the 20%. Let's focus on your best days. And what is it that you're doing and telling yourself during those times that if you were to do more, you'd be in a better place? And so we're looking at exploring progress already made, people's history. And, we mentioned the word history, and people usually go straight to something negative. If I say to you, hey, this person has a history, you think, oh, what have they done? But
Right?
a lot of good strengths and amazing achievements in people's history. And so this is a
Mhm.
model that says, let's look into your history, but we're going to be real particular and look at your strengths and resources and opportunities. And then we're going to build on that. And the
Yeah.
other side of it is hypotheticals. And so let's suppose that your problems were resolved. What would you be doing better? And then flipping the script there. Do a little piece of that now. Don't wait. And then things will get better. And so that's kind of the gist of it. And I think whether it's personal or professional, one of the things that I think people work hard at doing to practice this model is overcome some of those misbeliefs. They're myths. One you mentioned, just really kind of mentioned one of the myths, which is we ignore problems, and that's not true. You can't ignore problems. And I always tell my students, and I tell counselors, you got to listen to problems. And in fact, what I want you to do is to listen with a solution focused ear.
Yes.
And so, four
I
things,
love
right?
that.
Here it is. As you're listening to
Tell
problems
us
and
what it is.
issues and deficits, first, make sure there's no foreseeable harm. Okay, we want to make sure everybody's safe. Okay, no risk. Secondly, you got to empathize. They want you to understand, and it really is a wonderful thing to do, to be able to connect with somebody, understand their world, and empathize. How are they feeling, thinking? What is their physiology? What are they doing? So really have a good chance to build some rapport that and strengthen that connection. That's important. But here's where I think it gets really good, which is as you're listening to those things, you can hear a lot of strength if you're listening for it. See,
Mhm.
how are you navigating this? How are you coping? How are you doing some things in your life, even though it's not easy? How are you keeping it together? Okay. And in fact, if I would ask you, have you had better days? And usually the answer is yes. We could go back to that. And then here's the other thing, as people complain and wish, we get a good understanding of what they don't want to have happen in their lives. But that's the other side of the coin, is that we start to understand better what it is they want more instead.
Yeah.
And so listening with solution focused ears can really help you empower others very effectively and very efficiently.
Oh, I absolutely am right there with you. I think that that's probably one of the cornerstones that just anybody can do it any given day. They can wake up in the morning and say, "Today I'm going to listen differently.
Yeah,
Today I'm going to change up
That's it.
and
Yep.
listen for those exceptions.
Yeah, and it does take practice. It sounds easier than it is because we're so in tune. I mean, whether it's social media or the news or we love the drama, the dramatic and the traumatic. We love it. We love listening to it, and our ears perk up. And so you've got to train yourself to do the same for strengths, resources, opportunities, and support systems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's the main reason why uh we find that when we talk to a lot of people that even, and then I think it's always been this way. I don't want to say only today, but it seems like they're even more leaning into those things that are going wrong. And it seems like even on a higher level, like they're blaming social media and blaming all of these outside things. And this is why this has happened to me. And I think that the solution focused a way of thinking and approaching life allows us to step away from that, just step away from the blaming game and why did this happen and this is what happened to me. And then kind of what you're talking about is then you're reapproaching the same exact situation with a different set of lenses on, with different, a whole different outlook.
Yeah.
I think that is the outcome of us choosing to listen differently, is
Yeah.
that we begin to see our life differently, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And on paper, it's real simple. You get more of what you focus on, and that which you feed grows.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? We don't even know that we're doing it sometimes. I mean, I get caught, I'm like, oh man, I just spent like a whole hour wallowing in my whatever. Yeah, like it's like it happens so quickly, So we gotta have a lot of grace.
You're exactly right. And there's two parts to that. One is it does happen. I experience the same thing. And, if I start feeling a little low or down, that tells me I'm off track. I need to refocus. And sure enough, I probably spent, some time focusing on deficits and issues. And I can kind of, put the shovel down and get out of that hole. But that takes practice for sure. And the other thing is that helping others, give others credit. And so this is a part of leadership. When it is that things are going well, look out the window. Who can you thank? Who could you be grateful for? And let them know that.
Yeah.
And so whether you're working with a parent or have a friend, and I'm still working on that. Being grateful and communicating that to others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that we talk about the power of gratitude, but being able to it's really a very selfless approach. And then you can bring that into the whole attitude of gratitude because we're looking at other people's strengths. And then what you're saying is don't only notice it, highlight it,
Right. Highlight it. Yeah.
uplift that person and choose to do it in a public setting because they might not ever get a chance to be highlighted in a public setting. That's when we really find the power for ourselves. It just kind of like ignites us as humans, right? Have you ever had that experience where you've found something that they might not even realize is a wonderful thing in their life and you uplift them and you just see the results of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Cher, this is something we learned early on. I mentioned almost 3 decades ago when Jerry and I were starting to learn about this and how it worked. We started getting some really good results with kids. And
That's right.
we
Yeah.
we go to the teachers and we go to the parents and say, hey, Johnny's doing much better, isn't he? And we were happy about it. And what we discovered unexpectedly, they were not so happy about it. They were kind of snapping their fingers, going, "Oh, you don't know Johnny like I know Johnny," and they would, and this kept happening time and again. And I told Jerry once, I said, Jerry, I think we're getting sabotaged. What's going on here?
You're like, we
And
need to chat about, we need to figure this one
yeah,
out.
this was bizarre. I mean, these are the people that referred their kids and they said, please help. And we did, and it worked. And now they don't believe it. And that's, I think, was part of the thing. It was, they didn't quite believe that it was happening. But here was the solution. Here's what we figured out. And it has to do with gratitude and credit and all that stuff. I started to realize that I get it. If I'm working with a kid for months, or if I'm a parent, I've been working with this kid for years,
Yeah.
and then you come along and you get to make some changes that I couldn't do, how would I feel about that?
Yeah. You might feel a certain type of way.
Yeah, you might feel a little certain type of way. And I developed this protocol that says, look, first, when you're dealing with someone else, and this could be, by the way, a parent dealing with a teacher or an administrator, or personally, however you want to do it. But when you're dealing with someone else, show some gratitude. Really recognize their efforts. Mom, you have been working so hard. I mean, you have not given up. You're hitting your head against the wall, and you tried just about everything you could think of. I can see that you really love and care about this kid. Same thing with teachers. Look, you probably could have even gotten this kid out of your class, but you didn't. You're not giving up. And so we really try to recognize all of their efforts. And then I actually downplay my efforts. I say, I don't know if there's anything I can do that you haven't done already. And then I emphasize the teamwork. See, if we can do something together, maybe something will give.
Right.
And then I put out a bolo. Be on the lookout. So
Oh, I love that.
at home, be my eyes and ears. Teachers in the classroom, be my eyes and ears. And we know that you get more what you focus on. So if I get parents, caretakers, guardians, grandparents at home looking for signs of progress and achievement, they're more apt to find them. And by the way,
Yeah.
kids notice that they're looking for them. Same thing with teachers in the classroom. And so now they're part of it, and they are an important part of it.
Yeah.
And when we just start to see progress, then it's everybody gets to explain that. So mom, dad at home, yeah, Johnny's making progress. So what have you done that would help explain this kid's progress?
Mhm.
Teacher, same thing. What have you done in your classroom that would help explain that this is working out? And then I go to the kid. What have you done? And so that gratitude, that complimentary piece, that including them, giving them credit, and also giving them that role and responsibility as part of this process. It's an important one. You can't really do the work without them.
Yeah. And I also think much earlier, you hit on something really quickly is the fact that it starts with you fully believing that they can.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
think they can sense that. We never underestimate the power of the energy that we're putting forward in that conversation. And I think using a solution focused lens helps us put forward the type of energy where I believe in you. And
Yeah.
I know this can happen. And then we can roll from there to say, now I just want to highlight them and highlight them as they move forward.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the issue. It takes a while as you're practicing because seeing is believing. And sometimes you have to watch the approach in action and then look at the actual results to start saying, hey, you know what? There's something here.
Yeah. But I love the way that you, uh, stepped away and said, something just isn't quite right. And didn't just keep plugging away at highlighting, hey, isn't everything going well with us? And you were able to actually pinpoint what has ended up being a very important part of the solution focused working in schools. Because I think that the way that you just approached that and then saying, hey, be on the lookout for things that are going well, that's why it works for every entity, because a school is unique. It's not, you're not just doing therapy with one person or one person that has a substance abuse issue and now you're helping them, through the solution focused approach. They're dealing with the noon duty person, they're dealing with the person that walks them out to the car,
Mhm.
along with the parent, along with the psychologist, and sometimes they have a speech therapist thrown in there. And everybody has a role that is important to play. So
Yeah.
I think that the way you just highlighted that is the way that everyone can be honored and use the approach.
Yeah. And I have to also add, Cher, too, that, professionally, it's a lot easier than personally. I can more easily help your kid than work with my own. Um, because the paradox, I think, is that the more passionate you get and the more vested interest you have, the greater the pressure to do what's right and help. And what I find is that it's just a lot easier to revert back to what I used to know. Let's focus on problems here and let's understand this and what's going on and how could this be. And so I got it personally, whether it's my own kids or other friendly relationships, I've got to really work harder at it and
Yeah.
say, I know this stuff, and so let me change. I'm constantly making course corrections in my focus and what I listen for personally, and it's easier to do professionally than it is personally.
It really is. And I feel like that's why when I tackled having conversations that are solution focused on my TEDx talk. um, the person that ended up having me come, they said, you know, I've worked with solution focused approach, but I think it's interesting you're going to talk about conversations. And that has been a much bigger battle than I originally had thought, because I had to practice it a long time and I still have to practice it all the time. But I honestly believe that we can bring aspects of the solution focused approach into our conversations.
Yeah.
The more we practice, the more natural it will seem. But it's not because we just want to change every conversation. It's it's what you mentioned. It's listening different
Yeah.
and then answering back different, right?
Exactly, exactly. Probably one of the best analogies I have. Grew up in the martial arts, and so I took a lot of judo and jujitsu, and did that for a number of years. And at first, you train and you train, and but if there was ever a real fight or something, you're probably going to go back to street fighting and not really doing what. But there does come a point where you've gotten so many hours into it that you could start to automate some of your training.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when exactly that is, but I know it takes time. And so it's kind of like that, I think, with conversations and relationships, and it takes recognition that you know that you have certain techniques you want to use, but then the second part is actually automating them some more through training and practice,
Repetition and caring
repetition.
enough.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you
yeah.
got to
That's
care
it.
enough to keep on giving it a shot, even when you fail, which is the same. And I mean, sports is a perfect analogy for anything that we're trying to retrain our mind about, because, sports is all in our mind as well as much as physical, where, I mean, you don't see even the highest athletes saying, okay, my training is done now. No, they're out there, if not more so, practicing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, in fact, if I had any, I don't know that much about sports or sport training or anything like that, but I do know solution focus. And if I were a sports trainer, I would be showing my players all of their best work.
yeah.
Instead, because what happens. That's what happens is we had a terrible game, and let's review how we screwed up.
Oh, yeah. Let's watch the
Yeah.
tape again and
Let's
again
watch
and
it
again.
again. Yeah, yeah, that's going to help. No, no, we want to go back to our best games and go back to our best form and our best techniques and our best teamwork, and you get more of what you focus on. So if we're
Yeah.
having a rough time, it probably means that that's kind of what a rut is this repetitive focus on what's
Isn't
not
it
working.
though?
Yeah.
I know. You know, this is crazy. It made me think about parenting, right? With my daughter all of a sudden. um, when I was dealing with my daughter, I used an approach, a part of the solution focused approach that just worked so well. And it was that she was really, really stuck in her academics, and she loves volleyball. And I said, well, if this was in volleyball, how would you fix this? If this was a problem with volleyball, how would you fix this? And boom, she gave me like 4 steps, like, oh, well, I do this. And then I blam it. I'm like, huh. And then I was just kind of quiet. She was in, like, I think, 6th grade at the time, seventh. And she's like, and I said, I wonder if you did what if you did that with math? And she's like, yeah. And then you don't have to say much because you want them to think through it and figure it
Right.
out. And sure enough, the next day in the car, she says, Mom, this is what I did with math, as if it was her own idea. We didn't co-construct any of that. She's like, I just did this and then I practiced it. And, I got a good grade on the test. It's like, it just took that extra thing to help them connect the dots, between the success in their life.
Absolutely, and I consider that kind of an advanced skill, no
Okay.
matter what you're doing, really. I mean, and that's really, I think, one of the advanced kinds of ways to practice solution-focused counseling is to be able to not only detect strengths and resources, but then to be able to translate them into new areas. So whether it's sports and academics or relationships, but what are you good at? And kids are good at things all the time.
Oh,
Sometimes we
yeah.
just don't notice it. One of the when my kids were growing up, I was amazed at just the video games and just how they were so good at technology, and it really got me thinking about so I'd work with kids, and And I can say, you got a high score on Guitar Hero, and here's what I know about Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
You got. I know that's an older game, but
I wish they still
that's
had it. That was a
yeah.
great game.
Oh my gosh,
Sheesh.
it's just the one that popped into my head.
It's great.
Here's what it takes to do really well in that. And oh, hey, guess what? Those are the same things that are required in the classroom to get
Right?
good grades. Concentration, coordination, following, listening to the sounds, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so kids are doing stuff all the time. And if we can
Yeah.
detect and identify what they're doing well, we can also apply them to other areas.
And you know what? Sometimes what they're doing well is a video game.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
true.
okay. I mean, I had an experience so similar to that, being with a selective mute. And it was only, gosh, it was right before the pandemic. And so I didn't have that many chances to actually work with this child before we were all pulled. And I sat there with him perfectly silent, the way that he had chosen to be since first grade. And the speech therapist said, "I'm just fit to be tied with him. I don't even know what to do with him anymore. He will not talk." And the teacher, "He never talks." And I sat there and I said, "So you must just always be quiet." I said, "Even when you're playing video games?" Just as a shot. And he's like, and I'm like, and that I nodded no for those that are not watching on YouTube. And I said, "Well, what happens on video games? What's different during the video games?" And it would, for him in particular, it doesn't always happen this quickly, but it just switched a light bulb. And he goes, "Well, I have my avatar." And I said, "Well, tell me about your avatar. Tell me about it." And he just told me all about his avatar. And it was a magical moment because I said, "What happens if you were that avatar in class? What would be different about that day?" And he said, "Maybe the teacher would notice. Maybe I'd have friends." And he started naming all of these things that he wanted. And I'll tell you, even though that conversation will never, ever depart from me, because it was such a dramatic expression of how he needed to find what he was doing well. And sure enough, the teacher said, and all I did was walk back and say, "Hey, notice if anything changes." And it was a rainy day out here on the Friday before we left. And the teacher ran in the rain to my office and my door and said, "Mrs. Kretz, oh my gosh, he smiled at me. He talked to me." And I'm like, and that was the day we left. But it was just, I don't even know. I'm really glad that story came up when we were talking. That is such a really good memory of mine.
I'm telling you, that is brilliant. It's brilliant. And you nailed it. I mean, that's it. Is if you look for those exceptions, if you look for when it is they're doing their best, even in situations that don't even relate to what we're having to talk about,
right?
Those are the clues that you need.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you're not doing that, if you're still problem centered and you're still trying to, explain, blame, and then reframe, you're going to feel frustrated, just like that colleague you said. She said, I'm over it or something. But I see that all the time. And so I think the solution focused approach is a perfect antidote to burnout. Things are so hard these days, whether it's personal or professional. And, if you're walking around all day looking at how to identify and explain and then solve problems, it's exhausting. And so
it really is.
This approach, I think, can be energizing and maybe even a good treatment for burnout.
You know what? I think it is because there is a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah.
There is a lot. I feel as though the pressures of everything is getting to people, and we can't, just sit and ignore that isn't happening.
Yeah.
But switching our approach, it's a lot more powerful than people think. If we keep doing the same thing over and over, then I think that, we're just kind of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we know that's the definition of.
Yeah.
Sanity.
Hey, you mentioned the whole look out for something. What was that? The BOTL.
Oh, yeah. Bolo, be on the lookout.
Is that in your book?
Yeah.
That is so cool. How have I missed this? You take a minute to break this down. That is so cool.
Yeah. So that was part of the what I was saying about including others,
Yeah.
right? And so, if we're going to include teachers and parents and include others, it was the 4 steps that I was kind of talking about a little bit earlier, which is, first, really recognize and give gratitude and compliment the other person. Uh, and so, with teachers, it's uh, you know, hey, listen, you've been working with this kid for so long, and so it was that thing that we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I'm backing up. It's just, I saw my notes and I'm
yeah,
like, wait a minute. He didn't break down
yeah.
this
No, I
be on
did,
the
I did.
lookout thing again. I
Yeah,
want to,
yeah. That was the part of that 4 step process of
yeah.
including others. Yeah.
So that brings me to the fact that we got to hear about your book, right? So tell us about your book.
Okay. Yeah. So, for many years, I've done workshops all over the country and different parts of the world. Um, and I've done that for almost 3 decades now, maybe more. Um, and people would say, hey, do you have a book out? And I always say no. And I was really practicing the model. If it works, do it more. If it doesn't work, do something different. And I just didn't need it. I didn't need to.
You're
Jerry
like,
had a
what I'm
good
doing is
book.
working, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Others had books out, and Linda Metcalf, she's got some great books out, and Jerry and others. And I said, I just refer them to. I could do other things with my time.
yeah.
But it was a few years ago where I started seeing that the book that I wanted my students to have, just didn't quite exist. And so I wanted something that was written just for school counselors. It uses the language of school counseling, the language of the American School Counselor Association National Framework for School Counseling Programs. Um, and then I wanted something that was really, really practical. So I took a lot of the transcripts from my own work, things that we had learned over the years, in addition to the research base. And then I wanted something that was more comprehensive. A lot of these books are just about individual counseling. So I wanted to do a book that was also about peer helping and solution focused leadership and program development and working with parents, teachers, and others, and so on and so forth. And so that's what I did. I said, it's time. And I got to tell you, I remember working on it and I was in the zone. I mean, it just all poured out. I barely remember doing it. It was months and months of me just sitting there. It was just all pouring out.
Yeah.
And it came together so nicely, and I'm so proud of it. But it's, what is it called? Solution
The
Focused School Counseling, the Missing
the
Manual.
missing manual. Dun dun
Yeah,
dun.
yeah, yeah. It's doing real well. I've had actually entire states order the book for every school counselor in their state.
Yeah, I think that it's actually that valuable. I remember one of the first groups that I was in, as far as a solution focused group, was jumping into your Facebook group as well.
Ah, yeah.
And you're just always more than generous to put out little things that kept my mind solution focused, especially when I was just beginning practicing.
Oh,
I don't know how open that group is. Do you have that open to anybody, or?
yeah, you just have to. So if you go to Facebook and you put in solution focused school counseling, it should come right up. I don't think there's very much other groups like it. Um, and yeah, I think you can get in. If not, it'll probably alert me or something to let you
Yeah.
in. But yeah, that's a big group. We've got lots of thousands of people in there. And you're right. I'm trying to do more and more with this group. I want it to be a place where it keeps people's mind in that solution focused mentality and mindset. And so we do some lunch and learns. I put articles up there, some video clips. But I know there's a lot more that can be done with that. I want to get into lesson plans and other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I ever actually told you, because then we just saw each other and started talking like we'd known each
Yeah,
other a million years. But
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I ever actually told you thank you for that group, because it's true. No one always taps into their Facebook groups and read them and stuff. But when I was trying to kind of keep myself solution focused, sometimes I just need to go and scroll on that.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm a lurker on these pages. I'm not one of these that are like I get the award for the most comments. No,
You don't have
but
a badge or
no,
anything like
I
that?
don't have a badge. But I'm good with that, because what I utilized it for, really, and I still do, is sometimes you just scroll back and you just read and you're just like, you know what? This put me in the place that I need to be. And I don't think we always need to have all of the trainings on there. It's a place where we can feel like we belong. You know, if we're out there in a school that doesn't understand solution focused, or we're talking to other people that don't quite understand what we're doing, there's people out there that do. And I think your group is one of them, and it helped me out. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'm glad that, yeah, now it's all coming together for me. Sounds like you were in that group. And then I think we met at a national conference or
Yeah.
something and just
Yeah.
started keeping in touch. Actually, I'm glad to hear what you said because, I do a lot of 1 day and 2 day workshops. And now, since the pandemic, I do a lot of 1 or 2 hour Zoom kinds of online trainings as well. In fact, just this morning, I was with a group of Newark special ed and student services folks for about 3 hours doing
That's
this.
so cool.
But the Facebook group for me is continuing the work in bite-sized pieces. Just
Yeah.
kind of. Hopefully, every couple 3 days, I'll kind of remind people about different things that the model does and how you can do it. And so it's just some bite-sized things you can do in a few minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that Instagram is great, but I kind of think that it's nice to be in a place where you know that everyone else is also there because they have some kind of warm feeling, if not fully practicing the solutions focused approach. So, it all plays its part. Do you have a Instagram out there you want to tell people about?
I do, but I'm not really very active on there, and
No,
so
it's
I'm
not your
kind of
thing.
hesitant. I'm actually Sabellagram out there, and but I'm mostly Facebook and Twitter,
Okay.
or X, whatever you want to call it. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I've been kind of, if I do get on I think Instagram's where I'll post first, and then maybe LinkedIn,
yeah.
but it's the world we live in right now.
I
We
know, I
have to
know.
have it.
I just said my website's easy to remember. It's schoolcounselor.com.
You're
Schoolcounselor.com.
look at how lucky you are,
I know, I know.
schoolcounselor.com.
So
How long ago did you get that URL?
oh, that's a whole nother story, Cher.
Oh, people are like, I hate you. I wanted that one.
I'm schoolcounselor.com. Yeah, so from
That's
there you can
awesome.
get to my socials, and I got a lot of handouts, and so there's a lot of stuff you can download from there
Yeah.
as well. And there's
I
a
actually
page.
looked up your website again and getting ready for this, and you have really just not only the information but the freebies, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have such a professional little all the little anyway, I'm on it right now. So you guys need to go over and check out schoolcounselor.com because that's awesome.
I
I was just happy.
appreciate it.
I got sharekretz.com. I was just happy I had that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
These days with Google and all, you can just put in people's names and their stuff comes up. But
yeah,
it is kind of cool to have
it
schoolcounselor.com.
is. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, I was actually, that happened in the 90s when the internet was just kind of getting started. I
So
was
smart.
really into technology. I was in an interactive technology committee for the American School Counselor Association.
Nice.
This was just coming out. It was,
That's right.
and so the committee was like, what is this internet and what does it mean for school
Yeah,
counselors?
that's back what people are saying.
Yeah,
What
we were
is
like,
this
what is this?
.com? What is this
Yeah.
stuff? What is
Yeah,
this?
and back then, so the committee was charged with coming up with a website,
Oh
and I
my
was actually one
gosh.
of the first. I was one of the first website designers for ASCA.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and so we had to come up with a name, and we were going to come up with, so schoolcounselor.org is ASCA's.
Yeah.
And we actually wanted ASCA.org, but it was the Australian Shepherd Herders Club or something like that, and I think it still is.
Hey,
So
I'm glad you didn't
yeah,
because that would have been too
yeah.
random. It
We
needs to be
didn't, yeah.
straightforward.
So we went with schoolcounselor.org. And at the time, it was very clear. If you're an organization, you're an org. If
That's
you're
true.
education, you're EDU, military, MIL. And if you're a company, you're COM.
Yeah.
And so I was just getting started on my being a consultant and kind of doing my side hustle. And I thought, why not? I'll just, who else would want this? Schoolcounselor.com,
So smart.
And I said, I'll just register it. And I was like, okay. And that's how it started.
Dude, if you ever were in deep need of money, sell your .com.
Sell it. Yeah, I get offers
If you
all
were
the
in
time.
deep need of money, you'd be like, all right, here we go. I'm selling the .com.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. I think that it's in my will, actually. ASCA will probably get it.
Yeah, they probably will. No, you should sell it. Give it.
I'm going to
And
bequeath it.
Right. That's good. Well, anyways, we digress. No, this is fun. We have
Yeah,
to just
yeah,
chat.
yeah. It's been fun watching technology over the last 3 or 4
Right.
decades.
You
It really
mentioned
has
before we
been.
got on that you're actually doing some cool stuff with that even now.
Well, for years, actually, even before Solution Focus, that was my heavy focus. It was helping counselors with technology, and it was becoming more productive and efficient, and I'm still doing a lot of that. So part one of my if you go to schoolcounselor.com/tech tips, you'll get a lot of my work in that area. And of course, now I'm really heavy into artificial intelligence. What is
Give
this?
us a
So,
sneak preview. What have you been doing?
well, my gosh, I'm getting some flashbacks. When the internet was first coming out, I thought, oh my God, this is kind of onerous. What does this mean for the profession? And, at the time, it was just information driven. It wasn't interactive. There was no social, no nothing. But you could tell it was just something that we knew it was going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, looking at AI now and looking at internet back then, there is no
It's
comparison.
unbelievable,
This
right?
is this is definitely going to be a game changer. So I'm
Yeah.
both very, very excited and also very nervous. I think
Well,
most people just have not played with it. They don't understand exactly what we're talking about. And so this is a new area for me, moving into AI, and I have some of the same questions I had when the internet came out back in the '90s. How's this going to work? How can it make counselors more effective and efficient and enjoy their jobs more? Ultimately, how can it help us to help kids? How will this be something we can use as a tool to impact kids? But I'm also very interested in some things that are, that school counselors are very passionate about, but all educators are passionate about. And that is, what do we need to do for kids to prepare them for an AI world?
yes.
And whether it's prompt engineering or writing their own LLMs or
That's
you
the
know,
bigger
or
talk.
or understanding the ethics, whether it comes, plagiarism or that kind of stuff. So,
Mhm.
it's all happening so fast. I know I feel the pressure of it every day just to kind of get myself caught up and up to speed on all this. But
Yeah.
I'm slowly moving into that. In fact, I don't know if I'll see you at the National ASCA conference this
Yes, we'll
year.
find each other.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to present on AI in school counseling, and
Okay.
I've got a
I
bunch
hope
of
it's not on Saturday afternoon. Whatever time I want to go to it. So mine's on
yeah.
Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and I've got some other state school counselor associations I'm going to go to. And so this is kind of a new talk that I'm giving, really helping counselors become more aware and giving them the tools to start engaging for themselves and for kids.
I think it's really important because what we don't want to do is shy away from what's happening in the future,
Yeah.
because that is the world that our students are walking into. And I think that's our natural reaction.
Mhm.
And maybe us as solution focused practitioners have already tried to reject that type of thought process in our life.
Right.
But I agree with you. As much as it's uncomfortable, we need to be able to help our kids thrive in that
Yeah.
world and then be there for them through it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and it's going to be bigger than that. It's going to be bigger than AI and it's already happening. When AI merges with robotics
Yeah.
and virtual and augmented reality,
Mhm.
it's all going to come together to really, I mean, we're really going to have to help kids work with co-intelligences. That's sort of kind of what we're calling it now, is kind of having your own personal colleague or tutor on board at all
So
times
interesting.
for how it is you live life and achieve. And so, how do you do that? And that could take in many forms. It could be virtual, it could be robotic, it could be all kinds of hologram, all kinds of things. And it's all happening here, I think, in this next decade.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch and be on this end of it because we are, like you said, we've been through watching a lot of stuff that's changed, and now, we won't probably be, it'll be long after we've retired when we watch people take the torch on this one,
Yeah.
Even more so.
You're reminding me. Not too long ago, I spent an entire morning. I didn't mean to do it, but I kind of went down the rabbit hole. I was teaching Chat GPT about solution focus. In fact, at one point, I gave it a whole bunch of example solution focused messages,
That's awesome.
and then asked it to write one for a certain student. And it did a really good job.
It
In fact,
really
I think you
does.
may have seen it. I posted it in the Facebook
It's
group.
asking the right questions.
It is, yeah. And oh, and by the way, that's so I got 3 Facebook groups. My second
Okay.
one is on AI and school counseling. So if
Okay.
you search for that one, you can join that group.
I'm
and
not in that one. What the
yeah,
heck?
we're exploring school counseling and AI.
So what's the name of it then?
You know, I don't have it in front of me. It's I think if
Dude.
you,
All right,
if
we'll
you-
just look
yeah.
you up.
If
and
you
then
Google it, yeah, school counseling and AI.
Okay.
Look on Facebook. There, search it on Facebook.
All right. I'm gonna find those, and hopefully the listeners
yeah.
will as well.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate the time that you've given out of your busy day. We could probably just move into so many different areas of solution focused. Maybe in 6 months, a year, I'll have to have you back, and we'll discover what's going on in our world at that time. Those of you that are going to be joining us at the convention, come find us at ASCA, and we'll both be there doing our thing. And if you want to learn about AI and counseling, find Russ, and he's going to be talking about it, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
where we meet so many people in person, is at
it's
those
true. It's
amazing.
I'm just always excited about the ASCA conference. So that one is schoolcounselor.org. No, let's not get confused. I'm schoolcounselor.com. They're schoolcounselor.org.
Yeah, I think we made that abundantly clear on this podcast.
If you go to their website, yeah.
If we've done nothing else, we've learned the difference between those two.
Yeah, they. Hey, by the way, I owe them. You know, I get a lot of traffic, and they're only there for a minute, and I can tell they're trying to get to the ASCA website. But
like, here I am.
Yeah, like, look at all these hits I get, and then you look at it, and, oh yeah, most of them only been there a minute.
That is so funny. It's so true, though.
Their information about the conference is on their website.
Yep. And you know what? If they're already counselors, which I know you're out there right now listening, and you're trying to decide if you're going to go. It's an experience you need to experience. You need to be there with the people that are making things happen. I ran into a counselor the other day, and she's all, no, I've never gone, but I've been thinking about it. If you're thinking about it, stop thinking, book your trip. You will not regret it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So enough plugging. It's time for us to say goodbye.
Yes. Hey, Cher, thank you so much. I've had so much fun. Boy,
this has been a blast.
Really fun. And, you know, just the content and just having fun talking to you. And I'm just really delighted that we had this time.
Let's get together when we're at the conference, and we'll continue some of this talk.
Sounds great.
And it's going to be great. So thank you again. This has been amazing, and we will talk later. See you later, Russ.
Thank you.